What's up everyone, John from Beyond ARTV, and welcome back to another episode of 7 on Sunday, a weekly series where I count down 7 things and whatever I damn well please. Just kidding, I am open to suggestions as well. This week's probably going to be a shorter episode, mainly because there's not a ton to say about everything, but I wanted to talk about 7 bands that people have just forgotten about over time. Things that got buried, and maybe I'm going to uncover some names here that you haven't heard in years. These bands are all the way from the early 2000s to as recent as the 2010s that people have just already forgotten about, that totally slipped off their radar, and they're like, oh yeah, they had a couple of hits, didn't they? What happened to them? Well, we're gonna look into that a little bit in today's episode. I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to leave a like. Let's go ahead and drop right into the countdown. Kicking off the list, we have one of those names that you probably haven't heard in quite a long time, but I'm a Sugar Cult advocate, so I wanted to give them some love, and I wanted to pick bands for this that maybe you just wouldn't see coming, and Sugar Cult is probably one of those. I found out about these guys in like 2004 off of the Burnout Revenge soundtrack, I believe it was, or else Burnout 3. They had some great tracks featured on soundtracks, and that's how I got into them, so kudos to you guys for actually selling out, if you will. But just 3 years after their most successful album, in 2009, the band went on hiatus, and their lead singer Tim Pagnotta started doing production work and has actually been pretty successful doing that, producing albums like Talking Is Hard by Walk the Moon, a fantastic release. And I have to say, if he's doing stuff like that now, you know, maybe it's okay to leave Sugar Cult on the back burner, but at some point it's one of those things that we'd like to at least see a few like reunion shows. I was inspired to put the Ting Tings on my list after totally forgetting about them for a while, even though they have had a couple of albums and I have a few friends that seem to like them, pretty much at least, but I always just never listen to them in my rotation. It's not something that comes up on shuffle for me because I've just deleted that stuff out of my iTunes with time, but I heard one of their songs, I believe it was That's Not My Name. That's exactly what it was. I heard it while I was walking around at Kennywood Park in Pennsylvania, and I was like, you know, this is perfect for my video that I was working on, because where the hell did these guys go? The Ting Tings are still putting out material, and they're putting out stuff that critics and fans just are not liking. These albums are not getting reviewed well, and the response in some of the comment sections that I looked at aren't that pretty. Where did they go from the Sounds of Nowhereville days? And now they're here making things like Super Critical, and I've actually listened to parts of that record. It was just a bit hard to listen to, and I think that's a lot of the reason why they fell out of the chart success, out of the spotlight. In 2006, every piano rock band wanted to be the Fray. In 2016, did the Fray even want to be the Fray? Of course, I was a teenager in the mid-2000s, so it was pretty much inescapable that I knew a ton of stuff from the Fray, and I liked it. I still actually own their album How to Save a Life from 2005, but they took a long hiatus between records. It took them 4 years until 2009 to put out something else, and it kind of reminds me of the long gap of bands like Maroon 5 leaving between their debut from 2002 to the follow-up It Won't Be Soon Before Long, ironic title, in 2007. But the Fray somehow didn't fall off from chart success. It wasn't quite as big of a hit as their debut, but still the self-titled record had some successful singles on it, charted well on the Billboard 200 as well. But they slowly started to fall off. If you remember, with Scars and Stories in 2012, they had a single that they really tried to push into the mainstream, and it was a fantastic song. Heartbeat is probably the Fray's best single that they have ever put out there in the world. It's so heartfelt. I love the pianos and guitars on that track, but it really wasn't that big of a hit for the band. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is when the Fray and their record label started to realize that they were fucked and they were fading into irrelevancy. The newest album, Helios, came out in 2014 and was a total mess, an absolute disaster in my mind. Isaac didn't sound confident on the record, and it barely charted inside of the top 10 on the Billboard 200, and it only did so then because it was released in the dead zone month of January. No hit singles on this thing, and just a really weird shift in quality and mood on the record, and I think that tends to lead to critics and fans kind of really starting to wander, and I never know why bands pull that. It's like, you know, you're really starting to get scared because people aren't buying your records or else streaming your music as much, so you just take away everything that you liked about the band in the first place. Okay, that makes sense. sway to the rhythm of 1, 2, 3, 4. One of the most simplistic and kind of cringy bands that had a lot of hits in the 2010s. From Hey There Delilah, a song that was charming enough at first until I heard it about 1,000 times and actually started to look into just how shallow this song really is, and the pains of 1, 2, 3, 4. I think people really started to get burned out on the whole crank it out, put it on the radio formula. Rhythm of Love was their last kind of hit, barely cracking the top 40 of the Billboard Hot 100. That album was a huge delay in and of itself from their 2008 release, A Big Bad World, which had 1, 2, 3, 4 on it. That was a Billboard top 40 hit as well, somehow. But then, after that, they took 5 years to put out a follow-up record. In fact, I didn't even know this came out, American Nights. Until 2015, I didn't know that that came out until just before recording this video. The band's sound very much fit with that of a college fraternity, hence why they appeared in the show Greek on ABC Family in 2006-2007 with their song Our Time Now. I remember seeing the commercials for this back in the day, and they kept typing it up that Plain White Tees were going to be playing in the background of one of the episodes, and they're actually going to be there. Like, that's the coolest thing ever. And I'm thinking, maybe for the fraternity, but not for me. Up next, we have Daughtry, which is not just a solo project of Chris Daughtry, it's actually a band. And Daughtry actually saw a ton of success. Their debut self-titled album sold over 5 million copies in the US, 7 million worldwide. That is nothing to scoff at right there. And there were actually some good songs on that. I enjoyed that record, especially at the time. It was something that I really got into, especially after Chris was on American Idol. And I always thought that he had a fantastic voice. And he was really selling himself quite well, but then kind of undersold himself and the rest of the band with subsequent albums like Leave This Town, and then really just giving the ultimate slap in the face, kind of like the Fray did with an extremely poppy Baptized in 2013, a record that featured songs like Battleships and Chris Daughtry saying boom ba boom ba boom boom for a chorus. Why did they start to fade? Yeah, remind me again. But in all honesty, I do feel like the whole post-grunge thing wore off, and people got tired of hearing that in the mainstream, and that shows why their albums slowly went down. We see that as a trend, and it's hard to find your footing and, I guess, subsequent successes with future albums that you release, but a lot of bands manage to do it and stay consistent, staying themselves without mixing it up too much, but also trying new things. And I think Daughtry took a big misstep after just kind of staying the same, just flatlining for a while, and then finally putting out something so different that most fans weren't interested in it. It hurts just a little bit to put number 2 on there, but hi All-American Rejects. How are you? If you're watching the video, you're not totally irrelevant. I mean, you did open for Blink-182, but maybe put out some material that isn't totally subpar. It was hard to put these guys on here just because I really do like them a lot, and honestly, the album Move Along is still something that I gravitate towards to this day. Even their self-titled and elements of When the World Comes Down as well. It went gold, that was their last semi-successful release that they saw, and with singles like I Wanna, that's where I started seeing this band going in a little bit too much of a poppy direction, something that just really was pushing from the record label, I feel like, to make them like a pop rock band, kind of like the mainstays Maroon 5, that would have a lot of charting singles. Did it work at all? No, because the follow-up album Kids in the Street absolutely tanked, and for good reason. That thing was a total mess. Critics didn't like it, I didn't like it, fans seemed a little bit torn on it. I really did like the title track, and of course Someday's Gone, one of the best All-American Rejects songs that we've ever received. Thank you for that one, but the rest of the album, maybe dial it back in a little bit, because your new stuff, including the single that you've been playing on the Blink-182 tour, I Don't Give a Fuck, is absolute trash. It's an absolute embarrassment to a band that once was. It sounds like a drunken fool just kind of slurring things up on stage, and the lyrics are just messy, the production is just way too much, and I don't know. Nick Wheeler, rest of the guys, please get it back together. If you're gonna make an album, please do it right. I've known since the start that these guys were number 1. Hot Chelle Rae. I'm sure you remember the fantastic year of 2011 crossing into 2012, where you couldn't get away from and everyone's favorite hit single. Seriously, where the hell did these guys go? Because they haven't broken up. They're still listed as a current band and are apparently working on an EP or album called Recklessly, and that's been in production for quite a long time now. They've released a couple of singles but have been silent since 2014. Their last album came out in 2011 and was called Whatever. There were some catchy pop songs on there, don't get me wrong, and at first I kinda did like Tonight Tonight. It was okay, but the lyrics on it are just so can't handle it for 1 or 2 listens, and then I just want to have a meltdown. If anybody's had contact with Chelle Rae, like anybody in the band, let me know what's going on in the comment section down below. I think everybody's starting to get a little bit worried at this point. Not really, but you know, like it seems like they're in a cave somewhere, just not really paying attention to the fans or putting out a follow-up to something that like most people would try and cash in on. So I guess kudos for them for not rushing something, but at the same time, it's just like, damn, it's like one of those bands that you think was poised to cross over to be the next big pop thing, and then they just disappear. Thanks for watching this week's episode of 7 on Sunday, bands people forgot about. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel because friends don't let friends go unsubscribed. If you'd like to see the full 7 on Sunday playlist, past episodes, it's linked in the description down below. Thanks for watching. If you have suggestions for future episodes, sound off in the comments. Other than that, I'll see you very soon right here on Beyond ARTV.